Islam is often described as a peaceful religion, yet it is responsible for thousands of terror attacks and terror-related deaths across Western Europe each year. But I suppose in a sense it is peaceful, to those who adhere to its beliefs. But step 1 foot out of line, question parts of the Quran, leave the faith or wear clothes as a Muslim woman they deem revealing, and soon enough you'll receive a death sentence, just like Salwan Momika. Born on June 23, 1986 in Iraq, Momika joined the Popular Mobilization Forces in 2014 in response to the capture of Mosul by ISIS militants. He became part of a Christian unit known as the Spirit of God, Jesus Son of Mary Battalion. During the Iraqi Civil War, Christian and atheists like him were heavily persecuted by the Islamic State. Facing the danger, he fled to Germany in 2017, where he renounced Christianity and embraced atheism. A year later, he applied for refugee status in Sweden, which was granted in April 2021. During his activism, he became immensely popular after staging Quran burnings across Sweden, often situated directly outside of mosques, similar to the same tactics used by Rasmus Paludan. In 2023, the Swedish Migration Agency ordered his expulsion, but threats from Iraq meant the expulsion could not be exercised. On the 27th of March 2024, Momika fled Sweden to Norway to seek asylum. Not long later, he was arrested by the Norwegian authorities, who deported him back to Sweden under the Dublin regulation. By August 2024, he and fellow activist Salwan Najim were charged with agitation against an ethnic or national group for their Quran burning protest the previous year. Court proceedings soon followed. Momika understood the risk of his actions, but remained incredibly steadfast in his mission to stand against Islam. In 2024, he tweeted, "I know very well the Muslims will kill me one day, but I am not afraid. I will not back down from my principles or from defending Sweden and the West. I am ready to pay the price for that." And he did. On the 29th of January 2025, at 11:11 p.m. local time, Salwan Momika was shot dead in his apartment during a TikTok livestream. 5 men were arrested in connection with his murder. This isn't the only time an anti-Islam activist has been viciously attacked in the name of Islam. For example, in May last year, Michael Stuzenberger, along with a few other people, was stabbed by an Afghan national, resulting in the death of a police officer. It's interesting to me that they see the ideology is so weak they feel the need to kill someone who questions it or speaks out about it. But those aren't the only people they target. For instance, in 2021, Sarah Khan received death threats after revealing she was no longer a practicing Muslim. When Tommy warned her about this, she laughed, so there's a bit of irony for you.
I'm sitting here. If you take these people's careers away and their money away, they won't be sitting there. I'm a volunteer, okay? There's nothing stronger than the heart of a volunteer. What has happened to me through having this opinion and speaking out the way I do, it's destroyed my life, it's destroyed my wife's life, it's destroyed my mother's life. I live with constant death threats. I've got some of them here if you want to read when we talk about a 2-tier policing system. I have to wear a bulletproof vest. I've got people wanting to murder me and massacre me.
Well then stop being a racist and a bigot.
Racist? Can you please explain one thing I've ever said?
I am a British citizen. I was born in this country, and I do not spout off rubbish like you do. Okay?
No, what am I saying that's rubbish?
I haven't got death threats. You know why? It's because I'm a nice person.
Please explain.
If
you talk against Islam, you love death threats. Against Islam, you love death threats.
As a result of that image.
You may remember that I mentioned earlier, an attempt was made in 2023 by the Swedish authorities to deport Salwan Momika as a response to the Quran burnings. Well, I'm curious if an attempt will be made to deport the 5 men who shot him. There seems to be a trend across Western Europe of the human rights of terrorists being prioritised over the people terrorised. The European Convention on Human Rights tells us that we cannot deport migrants to places where they may be tortured or face inhumane and degrading treatment. But what about the human rights of their victims? The human rights of the children being abused across the Western Europe? of the people being stabbed brutally in the streets? Well, what if I were to tell you that it was all a con? Human rights are an inherently socialist concept that does not exist. In terms of our human rights to have shelter, food and water, we don't have a right to someone else's labour. Someone built that house. What gives you a right to it? Someone grew that food. Someone planted those vegetables. What gives you a right to it? And in terms of our human right to not be tortured, isn't that just common sense? A God-given right? Why don't we have a right to not be a victim of a scam by an insurance company, for example? Does that mean it's okay because it's not stipulated on our human rights sheet? Terror attacks and rapes are constantly being committed by migrants, who then flee the risk of deportation. It's not fair. In Rochdale, and this is a project that I'm working on in a documentary that'll be out soon, out of the original 9 arrested for the rape gang, 3 faced deportation. Guess how many were actually deported? 0. None of them. These are people who raped, tortured and kidnapped countless children, trafficking them to gangs of men all across the UK. And it wasn't like all of them had lived in the UK their entire life. The ringleader, for instance, Shabir Ahmed, the one the girls called Daddy, only came to the UK when he was 14 in 1967. They were allowed to walk the same streets they terrorised their victims. In fact, some of the girls they raped are even bumping into them on the streets. The question then becomes this: why are our governments at an international scale so reluctant to deport the primary issue ruining our countries? Is it because they fear being called racist? Is it because they wish to see us destroyed? Is it because they fear Islam? These are the answers we so desperately need. While we always blame the Muslims committing these attacks, we must also place blame at the feet of our politicians who allowed it to get to this point. And they are covering up the true extent of the problem. In France, for instance, their GDPR laws prohibit data collection on ethnicity and its links with violent attacks. It's time we put the British people first. But thank you very much for watching. It's been James Harvey from Vox Populi. Please click the subscribe button down below. Cheers.